when I talk about a walk-around, I always start at the front. I've always started at the front. When you get to the dealership, it's up to whatever your dealership wants you to do. You do what they tell you to do. Don't walk in and say, well, John Bird, you know what? This is how I instruct. This is how I've always instructed. This is how I've always started. I always start at the front of the car. When you're going to do a walk-around, I make sure that the front hood is open, and I make sure that the rear trunk is open. Okay? Because you don't want to be interrupted in the middle of a walk-around. Have to keep going back to pop a trunk, or keep going over to pop a front hood, or start going over here to pop. Just don't. Okay? Be prepared. To set this up as a precursor as well, if you have a buddy system inside the dealership, always work with somebody in there, one of the other guys, one of the other ladies. Okay? Well, you're in the interview stage or the qualifying stage with your customer. It's always nice to have somebody else who's working with you to say, you know what, hey Bob, or hey John, or hey Mary, or whatever, you know, can you go get me the keys for that ugly-looking Ford Fiesta out there? You know, I want to show this guy the walk-around. Well, I don't know about the color, it's up to you guys, but... All right? And it's always nice to have a vehicle. You know, we just came out of some really cold, crappy weather. It's nice to all of a sudden have a vehicle pulled up out front. You do it for me, I do it for you. You have a buddy system. I'm telling you, you'll sell a lot more cars that way. You don't want to have too much downtime with the customer. Anybody know how long it should take you to sell an automobile, time-wise? If you say 2 hours, I'm going to have to shoot you. Okay? Okay? If the person's knowledgeable, it'll take you half an hour. If they're not, take you about 45 minutes. Okay? If you're over an hour, you're boring the hell out of me, and I don't want to continue because you've lost me. You can watch people in a walk-around. I look at my watch, done. You're over. You're finished. Somebody's looking at their watch, they're done. You see my eyes start wondering, oh, God almighty, can you please stop? You know what? You're lost. You're done. You got to keep them involved, and you got to keep it going. Keep the flow. Okay? So when you have a customer, you come up to the front end of a car. The other thing I like to do is you always use the customer's name. Okay? What's your first name? Andrew. Andrew. So throughout my walk around, I will say, you know what, Andrew, your new Ford Fiesta, okay, what am I doing? Creating mental ownership, okay? You're getting it. You're creating mental ownership. Andrew, your new Ford Fiesta, because guess what? Andrew's shopping this car. I'm sure you're going to go to at least see 2 or 3. Everybody shops at least 2 or 3. They do. The difference is, and I can tell you, the sales professional will make the difference. Unless it's a... oh yeah, you're filming this. Unless it's not a great car, I didn't want to say something else. If it's not a great car, okay, they're not going to, they won't buy, right? But quite honestly, if you're shopping cars in a certain segment, be it like little Honda Civics maybe, and you're looking at Ford Fiesta, and you're looking at whatever the little GM product is at this level or something, okay? The difference is going to be very minimal. It really will. It'll either be, could be styling, could be size. Fuel economy is going to be pretty much the same. Price is probably going to be pretty much the same because you're shopping in that price range. Okay? So a difference is you won't believe how much of a difference you can make as a sales professional with a customer. Okay? When we come up to the front hood, there's things that we're going to talk about. Things that are standard on every single automobile built in Canada. Okay? Canadian safety standards and federal standards imply you have to have certain things. So when we come up to an automobile, the first thing we can talk about is we can talk about a safety bumper. Okay? 5 to 10 mile, 7 mile crash out, whatever it is the manufacturer, okay, they have to fit a certain specification. Okay? So we can talk about a safety bumper. So in the event of an accident, Andrew, the first thing will happen is this safety bumper will actually push in, can actually push back out again before it does any damage to the inside of the engine compartment itself. On the inside down below, if it's higher than that, actually a bracket will break and it will absorb the majority of the front end collision up to probably 20 kilometers an hour. Okay? From there, the front end of a car has other safety features built into it. One you see on a front hood. Everybody looks at a front hood, and quite honestly, a lot of people never see underneath the front hood. All right? They have this. This is for 2 reasons. Anybody know what this is for?
Fire.
Fire and what else? Sound. Very good. Okay? Fire and sound. Do you know what's underneath this, though? Okay? Something you're going to learn in the front and the back. If you look underneath here, you see these bars here? These are called crumple zones. Okay? Every single hood of every single automobile has crumple zones. And the reason they have the crumple zones in the front end of a collision, be it from, you know, up to 10 to 20 from here, so up to 20 to 40, the crumple zones are fitted. The front end of this automobile, the front hood is actually built to buckle. It'll actually buckle and fold up as opposed to pushing in towards any of the passengers inside the passenger compartment. Okay? Very simple feature. The next feature, and the strongest feature as well, is on the front end of every car they have what's called breakaway points. Okay? Typically, when you look down the side of a car, you'll see the bolts. And there's usually at least 3 bolts. The front end of every single automobile built in Canada is built to fold like an accordion. It'll actually fold almost 3 times prior to entering into the firewall system and entering the compartment of the automobile. Okay? It'll act, that's why you see front ends, everybody goes by, oh my God, front of a car is crunched up, right? Otherwise, you'd hit the front end of the car and just shoot everybody out the back end, right? Because the front end would just continue its way through. So that's why the front end has those crumple zones into it. All right? And the 4 safety features, every single engine in an automobile is actually built to break away. Anybody ever seen an engine that's gone through and sitting in the front end of the front lap of somebody? No. Okay? So the vehicles have breakaway features. So at 100 kilometers an hour and such, the front end bracket system on every single engine built in Canada is actually built to break away, fold down, so actually the vehicle can be rolled over top of it. And I can assure you, I just saw a Honda back about a month ago, and it was the same situation. The engine was actually dropped out. It was actually sort of sitting on top of it out here. So you've got your safety bumpers. You've got your crumple zones, your folding zones. You've got your folding mechanism in the front end, like an accordion. And you've got your breakaway features that are sitting there for the engine to actually break away from the compartment. Okay? That's first off. Second off, in the front end of an automobile, you can always talk about the safety glasses. Anybody ever seen a glass break in a car? Every vehicle in Canada is built, the vehicle has to shatter and is to stay intact. Is to shatter into a million pieces but stay intact. And you know, I've seen stuff go through, I've seen rocks go through. It's got to be pretty massive. But if you ever see head injuries, you can always tell that the person's head injury, if you look inside the window, you'll see the shape of their head sitting right in the window. Right? You'll see this round ball be somebody's lid that just cracked onto it. The glass stays intact, okay? And that's so they don't get that shattering inside. From there, you obviously know that you have airbags and such like that, so we can talk about that. Down the side of an automobile, the majority of you are standing over here, so it doesn't matter. Everybody notice, typically in a lot of automobiles, you'll actually see a design such as this here. If you don't see a design here, has anybody ever seen the inside of a door? Okay? The inside of a door on every single automobile in Canada has what you call either cross beam sections or safety beam sections. Now, you don't see a lot of it now because we have concrete embankments along the highways, but have you ever seen the metal embankments along the roads? You know, the guardrails, metal guardrails? Has anybody ever seen what a metal guardrail looks like? If you look at it, that's right. So it comes in, comes back out again, okay? It's buckled in the middle. It's designed that way. It's not just somebody threw it up that way and metal was cheaper to bend. It's actually designed that way so when a vehicle hits it, it actually drives the vehicle down into the center section of that guardrail. Unless, of course, you're driving a massive, massive vehicle or, you know, maybe sometimes, you know, the big guys like the Hummers or Z71s or the Tahoes or something, you know, sometimes they'll get over top of that. But typically they've got it at a height for most normal automobiles in Canada that when they hit that guardrail, it actually forces the vehicle into that embankment and it pushes it down. Side beams on vehicles are built the exact same way. They're actually built so if a vehicle comes in and hits you on the side, it actually forces it down. It doesn't force it straight through and plow right through you and the person beside you. It actually tries to take the impact on the door and forces it downwards, trying to save the passengers on the inside. Okay? That's a feature on every single automobile in Canada. All right? Every vehicle in Canada, while we're talking about the roof, usually I've been doing this walk around this way, but I'm doing it because the majority are standing over here instead of you all walking around and following like ducks. Okay? Every vehicle in Canada has what's called a safety roll bar feature. Every vehicle in Canada, not just Jeeps. Okay? Every vehicle has reinforced steel compartments across the top of the hood. Okay? On the top of the roof. The reason being, it is to sustain 1.5 times the full weight of the automobile and the passengers inside the compartment. Okay? So unless you're carrying a football team in here, you should all be safe in a rollover situation. Unless, of course, you roll over and you're smashing onto things. But in a normal rollover situation, every vehicle in Canada is built to sustain that. When you're walking down the side of an automobile, every single vehicle in Canada, look at the tires. It's called a safety blowout rim. Does everybody know what that is? Safety blowout rim. That rubber is never to leave that tire. Even if you have a blowout, a major blowout, rubber will stay on that tire so you are not riding rim on road. Every vehicle in Canada is built to sustain that. Actually, if you see trucks too, you'll see trucks, some of you see pieces of the tire whipping down the highway. Well, guess what? The trucks still have leather, or still have rubber, on their wheels. Okay? Safety blowout rims. You want to talk about braking system, things like that. There's certain vehicles now, and I'll throw this in now because we're still towards the front end of the vehicle. You want certain vehicles that you're working with will have different trannies. Some have some phenomenal transmission systems now. I mean, even Chrysler's come up with this brand new four-wheel one. There's a lot of little idiosyncrasies that certain manufacturers have. Pick them up if you want and talk about them. Okay? Like if you know something is unique to your automobile that's not to the other competitors, that's what you want to try to bring forth. Okay? When you talk about the inside of a vehicle, and I'll get to that in a second, let's leave the doors open because I'll show you what I say in a second. On the back end of an automobile, same thing. Rear crash bumpers. Inside this, again, cross beam sections. Okay? You have safety beam sections in the rear trunk. It is built to crush and fold up, just like the front end of an automobile, saving you from rear end collision back here. So again, you're going to have the bumpers. You will have the folding mechanism. If you ever see back end collisions, you'll see lights trashed or the corners. But the vehicle is crushed in. Again, the crumple zones that come on the side, the crumple zones that come on the hood up in here. Okay? Again, saving the passengers on the inside from risk of injury. All right? On the inside of the automobile, the easiest thing to do is when you're talking to people, if you can remember something, it's called sell what you can see, don't see what you can sell. Don't make stuff up. Sell them what you can see. I can go to any automobile. Any one of you can. And when you're doing a walk around with somebody, standing at the door, you can actually sell them exactly what's in there. Whether you know what the features are, what package the vehicle has, sell what you can see, don't see what you can sell. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm standing here, and if I'm talking to somebody, right, the first thing you'll do is I always ask the person to have a seat. Okay? I don't want to stand here and do a walk around because this is where, and again I'm going to get to a point for the dealership, we can start going on the test drive. But I'll go back to that in a quick second. Every walk around, I put the person in the driver's seat. Don't have them standing up. Having them stand up does not have them feeling the inside of the automobile. When they're sitting inside the car, if you have a woman, you do not stand up. Okay? She does not need to have you think you're looking down her top. All right? You will always, when you're with a woman, you will always bend down and be at eye level with a woman. And that is just sheer respect for a woman. Okay? Don't stand there and go, oh yeah, don't. You're like an idiot. Okay? Always get down, eye level with a woman. You know what, and quite honestly, a lot of times you do it with guys too, but it really depends on the guy. You got to be able to feel the situation out and understand. Okay? And while they're inside here, sell what you can see, don't see what you can sell. When we talk about the fuel economy, I always do that at the beginning. Typically, I do it when I'm up at the engine. But on vehicle, this one doesn't have it, but typically, on some window of the automobile, there will be a manufacturer's sticker on there. It'll tell you the gas mileage. Talk about the gas mileage when you get there. Don't spend a lot of time on a sticker. Who cares? They don't care. When everybody looks at a sticker, there's only two things they're looking at. They're looking at the fuel economy. They're looking at, oh my God, how much is the price? That's all they're looking at. Don't start reading off all the features. And you don't. Okay? When you're going through a walk around, the easiest thing to remember is called FAB. F-A-B. Feature, advantage, and benefit. What's the feature? The feature is the crumple zones. What's the advantage of that? Is that the engine will fold up 3 times. What's the benefit of that? It's saving the passengers on the inside from risk of injury. Feature, advantage, and benefit. If you can remember FAB every time you're trying to give a fabulous presentation, that's what works for you. Okay? So we talk about the safety features. We can talk about the inside. You can talk about the side crumple zones, the front crumple zones, the rear end crumple zones. You can talk about the safety blowout rims. You can talk about the features inside the vehicle. You can talk about the gas mileage. Guess what? 10 minutes, I'm done. Okay? I've piqued your interest enough, and now I want you to drive the automobile. So, depending on your dealership, I don't know what the policy is. Some people want the salesperson to drive first because under insurance reasons, that's fine. There's lots of different ways. I've got dealerships that want the customer to drive first. Okay? Regardless, you really don't have to get into that because you're not taking customers on test drives, right? No. Okay. If you were, I'd take that even further, but. So, get the customer inside the automobile, even at the auto show, and let them sit down and let them enjoy it. Okay? Do yourself a huge favor and never prejudge anybody that comes to look at an automobile. You never know if that person dressed very casually, could be in a sweats and sweatsuit, could be a senior executive, could be somebody who's with the manufacturer, and could be somebody who's very interested in buying an automobile. And quite honestly, if somebody went back to Georgian and said to John or somebody else, one of the managers, over at the store, I was up at Georgian College and, I met this young person. Guess what? What if you happen to contact that dealership and say you wanted to work term? Someone said, it might register. Hey, you know what? I remember hearing about, you never know.